Okay, so here we really start to get into kind of the meat of these. You begin to see the point that I'm bringing together here, if I haven't made that very clear already a number of times. But interspersed throughout the MAC regions are Homo sapiens and are peculiar congregations of metallic arthropods. And this is where we get really confused about the ecological behavior of these things. There are these vast regions outside of relatively low but long amplitude MAC regions, so very low amplitude and very short, generally only reconstructed as one story, but very long areas. Outside of those MAC regions, we see these vast, some of these things are staggeringly huge, vast areas of what appears to be a migration pathway, except these are more rectangular or square rather than long linear traces, and made of the same exact material, but they always have metallic arthropods geometrically stacked within them. We've even found and exposed within MAC regions some of these really interesting multi-tiered features. So these are commonly referred to as the parking lot, or where the a lot, an allotted area where the metallic arthropods have parked themselves. Now, ecologically, what they were doing in these locations is unknown. There's no source of, seems to be no source of new Homo sapiens in these areas. Again, they're found all over. They're all over in the MAC regions. They're all over in some of these. So there seems to be no Homo sapiens reason why they're congregating here. Maybe, and of course, metallic arthropods have no sexual dimorphism. There's not males and females or any genders. So we don't think this is a mating ground. They seem to produce asexually. So we are really ecologically befuddled, I guess, by what was exactly going on here in the parking lot. But as I was saying, even in the MAC regions, we found multi-storied parking lots that are separated by what appear to be kind of migration pathways, or of those aggregate carbonate regions. It's very fascinating. Now, you may know, I think that there's enough children's storybooks out there about these, right? Is that the metallic arthropods are very charismatic, especially the Caros genus, that are so incredibly common in the Anthropocene. But just to do a little recap, for those of you who haven't read one of these metallic arthropod books since you were a kid, or you don't have kids or read your kids' metallic arthropod books today. But the metallic arthropod genus Caros here, they have, and this is pretty common between all metallic arthropods, of every style of Caros genus, every species. The iron endoskeleton frame with a plexiglass or iron exoskeleton. So they generally have an interior frame connecting their polymer rounds in the internal sort of neurologic cavity or metallic neurologic cavity. And sometimes they have an iron exoskeleton, and in the younger Anthropocene, where they tend to transfer to a plexiglass type of petroleum derivative. No wonder, as they were more and more adept at getting a hold of the petroleum. In their stomach cavity, there's a really high percentage of the stomach cavities of the metallic arthropods that still have within them their last digestive contents. So it's thought that the Caros genus, they were very successful predators, that they almost always had a belly full, or at least 1/4 or 1/5 full. Some of these things can fit 5 or 6 Homo sapiens. Is that we always find Homo sapiens fossils, oftentimes disaggregated within them. But one thing that we do know about metallic arthropods is they were very successful hunters, if not farmers of the Homo sapiens, because they regulated their food sources. Yeah, it is speculative. I agree, it's speculative. But the MAC regions and the metallic arthropod migration pathways and the stomach contents always being full, we are starting to put together a lot more information about just how great of predators the metallic arthropods seem to be. Now, they also have these spectrum-emitting eyes, if you will, over here, emitting glass eyes. Almost all of them have these glass eyes with these. Sometimes they don't often have incandescent light bulbs, but they oftentimes have some sort of fluorescent light bulbs or sodium gas light bulbs or some sort of a light-emitting source out of the front, and it's thought that then they were nocturnal, that they were not natively nocturnal, but to aid them in their nocturnal abilities, they evolved these spectrum-emitting glass eyes. They have a copper nervous system with a coil core. Around that coil core, it produces its own magnetic field, and it has a self-generating then electricity source, which is really amazing. They call these things the coil core that's here, they may call that an alternator in some cases. Then there's also the iron bladder that oftentimes is filled with hydrocarbons. So remember, they were in their stomach cavity. They were very likely digesting the Homo sapiens and then creating these liquid hydrocarbons out of those, which from those liquid hydrocarbons and from that waste that's in their bladder, they were able to create or manufacture a whole lot of the implements, the petroleum ground deposit implements, including their shoes, their feet that we see scattered all over the Anthropocene. So the mechanism here, sort of like photosynthesis, how do you go from these components into sugars and energy? The mechanism of how do you go from Homo sapien flesh into hydrocarbon is very poorly understood, right? This is not something that exists today in the Mycocene, so we don't know how this organic reaction occurred in the past. Another interesting metal that they have, the metallic arthropods also seem to concentrate platinum, particularly in the later Anthropocene, 1980s, maybe late 1970s and through. They have a platinum chip organ that is oftentimes thought to be an advancement in the thinking ability of the metallic arthropods. So very, very interesting. Then lastly, one of the things that we use, of course, in our everyday, one of the main staple deposits that we use for petroleum today, AAPGs, are the polymer rounds or the ancestral shoes or feet, fossilized feet of the metallic arthropod. Okay, so this is what we know of the metallic arthropods today. And now remind me or just yell out at me, I may have said thus far a few speculative things about the metallic arthropods, but this is mostly the story that you know, right? This is mostly, no matter if you're really, really into metallic arthropods or you haven't heard about them for years, this is generally what we know of them, right? There may be some more details and maybe some new information here. Okay, so this is the overall artist rendition of what some of these things look like. So we have the parking lots. They were transporting the Homo sapiens in the parking lots. Maybe they were waiting for their prey to exit the carbonate regions before nabbing them in numbers. Then they have these mass graves as well, as if they were burying their dead. This is a metallic arthropod that, despite being able to find what we would consider today as its neurologic center or its brain, they seem to have some sort of culture as they congregate, or maybe they have some sort of spirituality in which they pray. They migrate back and forth in regions, and then they also bury their dead. So the metallic arthropods, they have an obsession with collecting the petroleum and the petroleum derivatives. They transport it, and they have parking lots, and then they devour the Homo sapiens, or even if some have speculated they may have farmed these. So now I want to ask you, what's really going on here? Okay, this is what we know, but as we're getting more and more information all the time about the role that metallic arthropods play in the Anthropocene, we are seeing that Homo sapiens make more and more of an impact on this entire thing. So the metallic arthropods prey on the Homo sapiens, which are often found in the stomach contents. Okay, 1. direct relationship. The metallic aggregate carbonate regions contain a high density of Homo sapiens, both within the mounds and on the surrounding regions connecting the mounds. The metallic arthropods of all genus are extremely well adapted for their seeking of one style of prey, the Homo sapiens. You know how many Caros genus we have found with a bovine in its stomach contents? Okay, very, very few. They are out there. They tend to be in a different style or a trailer that was hauled behind the metallic arthropod as they were transporting them. But we find none in the stomach contents of the actual metallic arthropod. We may find canines or felines sometimes, very rarely, but we don't find the wild animals of the Anthropocene besides Homo sapiens in the stomach contents of these species. So, I mean, the metallic arthropods are completely, specifically, ecologically niched for Homo sapiens. They're one type of prey. Now, recall that also the MAC regions are connected by metallic arthropod pathways along which the PPDs are originally found, which are also all up in the anthrosols, right? That's how we oftentimes identify that we're getting close to one of these deposits, is the significance of anthrosols. So now my question again that we are backburner thinking about is, what were the arthropods doing in this situation? What is the real relationship between arthropods and the Homo sapiens? Okay, so let's look at one of these very well-known types of deposits, the Conservat-Lagerstätten deposits of Homo sapiens. Again, childhood storybooks. You've probably read about these really weird creatures of the Anthropocene, maybe when you were a kid and maybe not ever again since. And to tell you the truth, we have not really learned much more about these naked apes. They seem to be just kind of a silly side fossil of the Anthropocene, and they've always been disregarded as such, and we've never really invested much time into understanding their ecology. Now, in this article from Hopkins and Edulus, Homo sapiens Paleogeography and Biomechanics, during the late Holocene-Anthropocene climactic transition from the Journal of Completely Bogus Articles in 2012, they show 4 points here that I'm recapitulating. Here's the map previously shown of the MAC regions. Here's an artist's rendition of the sites at which these are found at, and then here is a real excavation of some of these Homo sapiens Lagerstätten fossils. And look how incredibly well preserved these Homo sapiens are, and how aligned they are and perfectly developed they are. Now they seem to have Homo sapiens, they have a very peculiar way of living, right? They live generally in one depth in these gigantic colonies, and then they have all of the other things that are running away from the colonies on the ground surface getting gobbled up by metallic arthropods. And that's about all we know of them, right? Is that they tend to be a burrowing creature unless they're out and about getting captured by metallic arthropods. The only other time we see them are associated with MAC regions or metallic arthropods. In their native localities, they seem to be marked by various lithologies of stones. So this is very peculiar. These can sometimes be made of marbles, granites, gneisses, a whole variety of rock types that are exhibited here. And where did these come from? Right? Can you believe this? We've never really asked this question: is why are the Homo sapiens, or how, excuse me, I should ask how do the Homo sapiens have access to such widely variable lithologies? Okay, it's an interesting question. They are arranged and ordered for optimal conditions. Now, this is likely just an evolutionary thing, right? We always see that complexity arises out of sort of the need for that complexity, and out of a species that had just a staggering population explosion during the late Holocene and into the Anthropocene. It's no wonder that they evolutionarily gained the ability within a short generational amount of time to organize themselves in such amazingly rigorous patterns. Okay, to my knowledge, there's nobody that suggests these types of things, or the arrangement of their skeletons, is reminiscent of any sort of culture. Okay, to my knowledge, there has been no paleontologists that study the the Homo sapiens deposits that would suggest that they have any cultural significance, right? That they seem to have been just living and breathing and dying at the hands of the metallic arthropods and running away from them and doing whatever they could to live their lives escaping them, okay, using tools that even the metallic arthropods would transport. Okay, they live near or within the MAC regions almost all of the time, and there seems to be really large colonies that are common. I mean, we're talking on orders of thousands that are not very far from other colonies that number in the thousands. So what is really going on here is the Homo sapiens was a burrowing primate, that the naked ape, that foraged the MAC regions and was well adapted to tolerating living inside of the predator's stomachs. So that's a point that I haven't hit, and I think that that's probably a relatively new bit of information to you. Though this phrase was published in the 2012 document here with Hopkins and Edulus, that bit of suggesting that they were well adapted to living inside of the predator's stomachs raised a whole lot of interest and concern about this in the scientific community, in the geologic and paleontologic community. So what some have actually suggested is that there's maybe, and this is just on the tip of this advancement of understanding the ecology of these creatures, some have actually suggested a process not unlike endosymbiosis that originally happened in singular cellular organisms that's very much like this, that the metallic arthropods are eating their prey, and then their prey develops and lives inside of them. And in some way, there's an endosymbiosis between them. And by the late Anthropocene, we begin to see this evolutionary advantage that those metallic arthropods that have been living inside of them and not just burrowing are becoming more and more complex and potentially even allied with the metallic arthropods for some style of living, for some sort of lifestyle, as if the prey then aligns with the predator to create some sort of culturally significant habit. So this is very speculative, and it has only been discussed a few times since this article. And you can see here an artist's rendition. This was like a newspaper cartoon that came out a few weeks after this, showing that maybe the Homo sapiens are completely happy to be inside of their metallic arthropod predators. Maybe they're doing just fine, and we've always thought that they were just these prey running scared and burrowing away. Okay? Now, I want to go one step further. That's right. I feel like that there's enough evidence to ask a different question, to put all of those previous assumptions aside, all of the speculations that we have about metallic arthropods and their place in the ecology of the Anthropocene. Place all of that aside and ask yourselves, what do we really know of Homo sapiens? What do we really know of the relationship between metallic arthropods and Homo sapiens, anthrosols, PPD deposits, and all of the other AAPG deposits? Okay, I stand here in front of you today as somebody who has made a career looking at the AAPG deposits of this time frame, and I cannot stop thinking about the relationship of those deposits, our livelihood in the Mycocene, to Homo sapiens. So I want to ask you a few questions. Really? First of all, really? That's what I was just saying about metallic arthropods driving this scene. They're chasing their Homo sapiens prey, and that they eventually ally with them, and the prey become integrated endosymbiosis into the metallic arthropod? Really? This is just as wild, I feel like, as what I am beginning to claim here. What do we know of those relationships between them? Is that really the full story? So let me ask you another set of questions for which I have no answers. This is pure speculation and planting mind seeds for you, good people. Was the Homo sapien actually a willing participant inside of the metallic arthropod all along? Not just during the late Anthropocene, where we think this cultural fusion may have occurred. Were the Homo sapiens actually in control of the metallic arthropods? Were they actually the ones who were in control of the metallic arthropods all along? Remember, the metallic arthropods do not exhibit any form of neurologic brain. They have a wiring system. They seem to be culturally complex, but there is no soft cavity structure like every other animal has, like a brain. Now, yes, it's probably because they're arthropods, right? That their internal organs are they're very complex and they're not as centralized as the organs of higher order creatures. So maybe that's the conclusion. Of course, they don't have brains. They have a soft network of jello stuff inside of them that transmits all of these signals, okay? But let's just ask the question, were Homo sapiens actually in control of the metallic arthropods? And therefore, they created the anthrosols and the PPD deposits. Did Homo sapiens transport petroleum derivatives along the metallic arthropod migration pathways to the MAC regions? Were they actually using the roads to drive the metallic arthropods between different colonies or cities, transporting goods and services? Was Homo sapiens actually responsible for the Anthropocene, Apocalypticene petroleum ground deposits? All of them. Not just the ones that we can see, and we are beginning to form a very close correlation. But were they, in fact, in charge of the entire Anthropocene, deposits and all? Were they responsible for many of the odd things that we see in the Anthropocene? A change in the isotopic composition of the atmosphere, the development of plastics, the worldwide spread of their own species, and several other types of circumboreal species, chickens, bovine, MAC regions, metallic arthropods, right? When does it stop? It doesn't. The Anthropocene is very unique in geologic history. And a lot of it could relate back to Homo sapiens. Were the Homo sapiens, not the metallic arthropods then, responsible for the extinction event? Okay? It's been long discussed that the metallic arthropods, because of their petroleum habits and gobbling all of this stuff up everywhere they could get them, that changed the climate and led to their own demise. Their own demise, that they could no longer manufacture themselves. The Anthropocene Apocalypticene mass extinction. Were not the metallic arthropods the driver of that, but were the Homo sapiens driving the metallic arthropods actually responsible for the demise of all of these other species that we see out there during the Anthropocene Apocalypticene? Okay, not just a species that suffered it. Did the Homo sapiens believe that they were actually a culmination species? Did they believe that they were maybe the culmination of evolution as a form of ape with thumbs and a large brain cavity and very advanced tactics, which we think are to run away from their prey, but in fact were a part of their very complex culture, global culture? Did they think they were the culmination of species in general, only to ensure their own demise by overconsumption and gluttony of the planet? Is there something here? How did Homo sapiens do this? Why did they do this? With all of these arrangements of deposits, one must begin to ask the question, was Homo sapiens actually terraforming the earth for fungi? Okay, and that's what I have to ask you today as Arthur Muscaria, or A. Muscaria. Some of you may know me by my nickname, the fly agaric. That's all I have to say about this relationship between Homo sapiens as an ore depositing agent of the Anthropocene. I have a few poorly typed out sources here just to give you a little bit more information where some of this derives from. And if you hung in there the entire time to take a look at this Mycocene lecture, I applaud you. This is some goofy shit we're talking about here. Goofy. All right, with that, you have yourself a great rest of your living in the Anthropocene.